Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Yana Johnson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Commander Jocelyn Blowfield. We warmly welcome the family of Pilot Officer Joseph Gipson Butler, whose story will be told shortly. Today we also mark Australia's official War Animals Day. This is our opportunity to remember and give thanks for the deeds and sacrifices of the many animals who have served alongside our troops. As citizens, we often forget how important animals have been to the Australian Defence Force through the variety of roles that they play. From personnel and equipment transports to messengers and carriers, right through to the mascots whose most important role is for companionship and morale. We thank and honour them for their service. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this National Memorial Museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which he remained true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Pilot Officer Joseph Gipson Butler. Joseph Butler was born on the 27th of April 1919 at Tallangatta, Victoria, to Benjamin and Alice Butler. Known fondly as Joe, he grew up surrounded by siblings, Coral, Pansy, Enid, Garth, Thelma and Mavis. He attended Tallangatta State School and in his final year was awarded Most Popular Boy. He went on to work as a mechanic in the family garage business and as an assistant operator at the Gaiety Theatre. In December 1940, at the age of 21, Butler signed up with the Air Force Reserve at a mobile recruiting centre at Tallangatta. In May the next year, shortly after turning 22, he travelled to Melbourne to enlist in the Royal Australian Air Force. Following training at Point Cook, Ballarat and Evans Head, Butler was mustered as a wireless air gunner, responsible for operating radio equipment and manning a gun as necessary during air operations. In August 1942, he was posted to No. 2 Squadron, which was flying Lockheed Hudsons, one of the most versatile aircraft used by Allied air forces during the early part of the war. By the time that Butler joined the squadron, its detachments had been withdrawn to Australia as Japanese forces advanced south, attacking the squadron's forward bases. The squadron maintained an intense bombing campaign against Japanese positions and shipping at Ambon, Timor, Kopang, and other islands in the Banda Sea. In 1943, as the Allies gained control of the sky, 2 Squadron made daily attacks on Kopang, Lortem, Penfway, and Dili. On the morning of the 20th of April 1943, 2 Hudsons took off from the island of Milanjimbi just off the Arnhem Land coast to carry out a bombing raid of Temuka in New Guinea. A few minutes after the second plane took off, a Fijian missionary stationed at Milanjimbi heard several loud explosions. He rang the Air Force and told them what had happened. He then got into a canoe and paddled 9 kilometres to Rebuma Island, where he was joined by Flight Lieutenant McKinnon, the commanding officer at Milanjimbi. While the cause of the accident couldn't be proved, it was thought that the 2 aircraft must have collided in mid-air. Originally reported as missing, it wasn't long until Pilot Officer Butler was recategorised as killed during operations. His funeral on Rebuma Island took place on the 22nd of April 1943, 5 days before his 24th birthday. His body was brought back to Australia and buried in Adelaide River War Cemetery in the Northern Territory. Joseph Butler's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died whilst serving during the Second World War, whose photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Pilot Officer Joseph Gipson Butler, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of Memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and we wish you all a very good evening.